Welcome to Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman and Sean. Today, we have two special guests at the Timmy the Toolman studios. My buddy Ray with his FZJ80 Land Cruiser, and my buddy Ton, who's going to be our expert cameraman. And what we're going to do for Ray today is, if you remember, we had Ray over here to swap out his radiator after he overheated the engine going down 101. Unfortunately, Ray just reported that he's getting a number one cylinder misfire, which is not a good sign. That was something we were hoping we weren't going to get. And so now what we're going to do today is we're going to investigate further into this misfire by doing a compression check of all 6 cylinders on this engine, and then any cylinder that is low, and especially the number one cylinder that has the misfire, we're going to do a leak down test, and we're going to figure out where is that compression going if that cylinder is leaking. Now, Ray did a little bit of advanced work on his engine. He thought, well, there's a chance that maybe a spark plug is bad, or maybe the spark plug wire is bad, or maybe the distributor cap or distributor rotor was making some type of problem with that number one cylinder. As it worked out, after he changed the rotor, the cap, the spark plugs, the spark plug wires, still getting a number one misfire, which again is not a good sign, which means we have to investigate further. So we're going to get started with this job. We're going to start off with a compression check of all 6 cylinders. Here we go. On this 1FZFE 6-cylinder engine, the spark plugs are underneath these top plates that attach to the valve cover. There's a front one, and then there's a rear one. We show a lot of detail in a tune-up of the 1FZ engine that I did for my buddy Aaron, and we're going to try to show a lot of detail here, but we're going to be moving kind of quick because we already have that other video. If you wanted to see that other video, click on the link above and you can see that video of how we did a tune-up on this same engine. The first thing I want to do is get this air tube out of the way. It's held on with a clamp at the throttle body, and it's held on with a clamp right at the air box. I'm going to use my Milwaukee Ratchet with a short extension and a 10mm socket to loosen these clamps. There's the throttle cable that attaches to the air tube. I want to get that free of the air tube first. There's a little clamp here and it's closed down a little bit. I'm going to bend it up to where I can get the cable loose. Okay, that's free. I'm gonna pop it out of here. I'm just gonna bend this out of the way. Maybe I could hook it underneath something to get it out of our way. Right there is good. Okay, I should be able to pull this off the throttle body and then get it off. So I'm just gonna set this aside. The next thing I'm gonna take off is this airflow tube. I don't know the technical term for it. It flows air through the crankcase and it goes to the throttle body. I'm gonna just pull that off. It's got just a very light spring there, and it just came off really easy. Now I'm just gonna set that over here on top of the throttle body. The plates on the top of the valve cover that hide the spark plug wires are held on with a 10mm bolt. You could also use a Phillips or JIS screwdriver, but I'm gonna use a 10mm socket. I'm just gonna lift this off and set this aside. I'm gonna do the same with the rear cover. There is an obstruction with this transmission kickdown cable right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get onto this with a 1/4-inch ratchet and a 10mm socket and loosen this one. It was already loose. Did you even tighten that one, Ray? What's going on over there?
On the second cap?
Yeah.
Or the one in the middle, the third one?
Yeah.
It was hard for me to get into, that's why.
And then this one, you have the heater hoses a little bit in your way, but I should be able to push them back. They flex just enough, and I could get onto there. Okay, and I'll be able to pull this sucker off. And now you can see we have the wires all exposed for us to be able to pull them out and access the spark plugs. Right here, I could already tell that Ray is missing a little bolt that holds the wiring harness to the valve cover right here. I'm going to go ahead and undo another one here, and then when I pop out all 6 of the spark plug wires, I'm gonna lift all of them out as one unit because they have all these keepers here, and you can't mess up the routing because the longest one goes to the rear, the next longest goes to the second from the rear, and so on and so forth. So I'm just gonna take a 10 millimeter socket and loosen this other clip right here. And like I said, there would be another bolt holding the wiring harness right here too. So now that's all free. Now I'm going to grab my spark plug wire pullers and start pulling up all these spark plug wires. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the hardest one to get to, the one furthest back. This truck is up there pretty high, so I have to lean over the engine with a step stool. Here's the adjustable spark plug pullers. You could change the angle of them depending on where you need to get them to. So I got them at a little bit of a bent angle. I'm going to go back there and pull up on the sucker. And the nice thing about this is because Ray recently replaced them, they should pull out nice and easy. Okay, that's not going to come out all the way just yet. Okay, I'm going to pull out the cylinder 5 one. 4. Got to wiggle them a little sometimes. Okay, that one, and then finally this one. One of these didn't come out too clean. I have to see if I can grab onto this one. The top pulled off. So see this? This is weird. The connector to the spark plug didn't come off, and Ray just told me that this was an actually aftermarket one because he thought he might have messed up the OEM one and he replaced this with one from O'Reilly's, but that sucker's stuck onto the spark plug. I can't get it off, so we might just have to tug on this thing and maybe break it. Well, it came off clean. It finally came off, but it just didn't want to come out of there, man. Just goes to show OEM is better. Gonna pull these out. And then hopefully I could now fish out this last one. There we go. And we're just gonna lay this over here, out of the way. Now we're gonna get the spark plugs out. I have this nice spark plug socket kit from Gear Wrench. It has built-in extensions of different lengths and a built-in swivel, which is nice when you can't get a straight shot at the spark plug tube to get to the spark plug. So I'm going to use this one. It's about a, I don't know, 8-inch extension with the built-in spark plug socket, which is magnetized. There are different types of spark plug sockets that have a rubber grommet that grabs onto the spark plug, which enables you to pull it out, but those rubber grommets wear out. The nice thing about the magnets never wear out, so I highly suggest you get a set like this. I never like using electric ratchets for this type of stuff, especially spark plugs going into an aluminum head. I like doing it by feel, so I'm going to loosen this with my 3/8 flex head ratchet from Gear Wrench. Okay, that's loose. And then I should just be able to back it out. And when I take these spark plugs out, I'm going to keep them in the order I'm taking them out. So from front to rear, it goes from cylinder 1 to all the way to the firewall at cylinder 6. And I'm not going to show doing the rest of these because it would be redundant. We're going to get all 6 spark plugs out. We got all the spark plugs out, and we're almost ready to do the compression check. Another thing I'm going to want to do is disconnect electrical power to the distributor so none of the wires are going to be getting electricity in case one of them decides to arc on something on the engine while we're doing this compression check. It's just an extra safety step. Most likely it wouldn't happen because the electrodes are sunk into the spark plug wire plug, but we're just going to do this for a little extra insurance. This coil wire has a clip and it's on the side facing the engine. You just lift out a little bit on it, it unclips. You can see the top cap move and just wiggle it and pull it out. And now we have the coil wire disconnected from the coil. All right, we're ready to get started with this compression test. We're going to start with the number 6 cylinder closest to the firewall and work our way towards the number 1 cylinder, which we know has an issue. What Ray is going to do is he's going to get into the driver's seat and he's going to push the gas pedal all the way to the floor. And what that's going to do is it's going to put the computer into clear flood mode. It's going to act like the vehicle is flooded, and it's not going to eject fuel from the injectors into the cylinders when you have that gas pedal all the way to the floor. Ray's going to turn over the motor with the gas pedal all the way to the floor until I tell him to stop. I'm going to be looking at my compression tester gauge, and I'm going to be looking to where it stops rising. And when it stops rising, I'll tell him to stop, turn the key off, and I'll record that value. All right, you ready to go, Ray?
Jumping in now.
Okay. And I'll tell you when. So I'm using this Deluxe compression tester from OTC. It's part number 5605, and it has different size connections for different types of spark plugs. So I chose the adapter that fits the right size thread and thread pitch for this engine. In addition, I need the actual gauge, and this connects with a quick coupling to the adapter that screws in to the cylinder. These adapters have an O-ring, so all you got to do is thread it in. When you feel it start to get tight, give it a little bit more of a turn, and then that's going to get a good seal with the cylinder. You don't need to go crazy tight because the O-ring is going to get that seal for you. When you're doing a compression check of the engine, you want the engine warm. So you want to drive it first and then start the compression check. You don't want it cold because that's going to change your values. You want the engine nice and warmed up. I already have the adapter into the number 6 cylinder, and I got to lean over this engine and get this thing connected. And then here's the gauge, and I'm going to be watching it while he's turning over the engine. You're not going to be starting the engine, but the engine's still going to be turning over, so make sure you have nothing in the way of the drive belts or the fan itself. So just get all your tools and any rags or anything else, body parts, away from the moving parts of the engine. Okay, Ray, so go ahead and put the gas pedal all over the floor. It is? Okay, go ahead and turn it over. Okay, stop. That's looking like it's about 192. It's a little bit over 190. And then you got this little button here, and you could just reset it and clear it. We've got the adapter into the number 5 cylinder, and Ray is now gonna turn over the engine, and we're gonna see what this one's at. Go ahead, Ray. Stop. Okay, that one is right about 189 to 190. Pretty close to the other one. So now we're gonna do cylinder number 4. Go ahead, Ray. Okay, stop.
180.
190. That looks like 190. All right, we're gonna go for cylinder number 3. Okay, cinch that down, pull back the sleeve and make the connection. Okay, that's tight. Okay, go ahead, Ray. Stop. That's about 191. A little bit of fuel will come out. If it starts on fire, we'll run. Now we're going to do cylinder number 2. I know Ray inside the cab is getting nervous because we're getting closer to the problem one. He's going to find out how bad it is. Pull back the sleeve, make the connection. Okay, go ahead, Ray. Stop. Ooh, that one's pretty good. That's 195 for cylinder number 2. Cylinder 1. Okay, we're gonna learn something here. What the problem is it bad compression? Let's see. Get that nice and tight. Okay, make the connection. Okay, Ray, you ready for this? Okay, do it. There's our problem. Stop.
Oh yeah.
You only got 68. That's not good.
Nope.
68. Houston, we've got a problem. We're not going to make it to the moon. We're going back home.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to have to do a leak down test and try to figure out where that compression is leaving the cylinder. To do a leak down test, you have to get the cylinder you're testing to top dead center on the compression stroke. One of the things you have to do is be able to turn the engine over in order to get it to that point. And the easiest way to do that is getting onto the crank bolt and turning the engine over clockwise as you're looking at the engine from the front. I'm finding that going from the top, I can't really get my hand in there with a ratchet and a socket to be able to turn the engine over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath and I'm going to take the little engine undercover that's held on by a few 12mm bolts, get that out, and then what I'm going to do is utilize Ray as my helper, and he's going to turn the engine over underneath the vehicle, getting access to the crank bolt from underneath, and then I'll be doing other things on top to figure out when the cylinder gets to top dead center compression. This is the engine undercover I'm talking about. It's held on by 4 12mm bolts, 2 right here next to the steering stabilizer, and then 1 on each side. There's 1 over here, and then 1 on the far side on the passenger side. I'm going to zip them out with my Milwaukee ratchet. And then the final one on the driver's side. And I'm going to pull this cover out towards the driver's side. Just like that. We finally figured out that the crank bolt is a 30mm. So I've got a short 30mm socket with my big 1/2-inch drive ratchet from Gear Wrench Flex Head, and Ray is going to be turning the engine over clockwise as you're looking at it from the front. So he's going to be turning it this way, just like that. So first we're going to determine what the top of the stroke is. The way I'm going to do that is I have a 1/4-inch extension. It's about, I don't know, 10 inches long. I'm going to slide that into the number 1 cylinder. And then I'm going to be watching this, and I'm going to have Ray turn the engine over clockwise this direction, and I'm going to be looking at the point that the extension goes to its highest point and then starts dropping down again. And I'm going to take note of that and then have Ray do it a couple times, give Ray his workout. And then when I determine what the top of the stroke is, I'm going to make a paint mark on this extension to let me know where that's at. Okay, Ray, go ahead and start turning the engine over. So you're going to watch this move. Right now it's going on a downstroke towards bottom dead center. Keep turning it, Ray. I'll tell you when to stop. Still going down. Okay, it's on the up travel now. We're going to be paying close attention to where this gets to a high point but then starts traveling downward. Keep going, Ray. Okay, it started going down. It's close to my other mark that I made for the 5VZ V6. So we're going to do it one more time. I kind of know where it's at, but I want you to do it one more time. I want Ray to get a better workout. Go ahead, Ray. So we're going to see it go down to bottom dead center again. Now slow down a little bit. I want you to take shorter strokes. Keep going, Ray. Keep going. Okay, stop right there. Okay, that's almost at my old mark, and it's equal to the top of the spark plug tube. Start going just a little bit. Okay, that's almost at my old mark. Okay, keep going. Do a little more. Okay, it's dropping. Okay, I know where it's at. So what I did here is I made a paint mark on the knurled part of this extension to let me know where the top of the stroke is. Now what I have to do is I have to get the cylinder on the compression stroke, and I'll show you how to do that with the hose that comes with the leak down tester. The leak down tester we're going to use comes from OTC. It's part number 5609. It comes with this hose and then some different adapters to accommodate for different size spark plugs. And then you have the actual tester itself with the 2 gauges. Here's my leak down tester hose. I'm going to screw it into the cylinder. Okay, that's tight. I'm going to put that leak down tester hose to my ear. And there's going to be 2 times you're going to be hearing air. You're going to be hearing air on the compression stroke, and then you're going to be hearing air on the power stroke. The compression stroke is when the cylinder is starting from bottom dead center. The intake valves and exhaust valves are closed. the air fuel mixture has already gone into the cylinder, and the cylinder is going to come up and compress that air fuel mixture, and then the spark plug is going to fire that, and then it's going to push the cylinder down on the power stroke. And on the power stroke, you're going to be hearing air, but what you're going to be actually hearing is vacuum. So the way I'm going to differentiate between the compression stroke, positive pressure, and the power stroke, negative pressure or vacuum, is I'm going to put my gloved hand over this, and if my glove is sucking into the nipple, that means it's on the power stroke, it's negative pressure. But if I feel positive pressure, like it's pushing against my thumb, and when I let it off I hear a little escape of pressure, that means I'm on the compression stroke. And then once I figure out I'm on the compression stroke, I'm going to take the tester hose out of there. I'm going to get the 1/4 inch extension with the little mark I made to figure out the top of the stroke. Then I'm going to have Ray continue to turn it over to get it to the top of the stroke, and then we can put the tester hose back in there and start the leak down test. Ray's going to get back underneath the rig, and he's going to get more of a workout. So it's just like I'm like the old timey using my little ear horn so I can hear. Eh? What you say, Sonny?
So you went.
Go, Ray, go. I hear pressure. Do it again. Do a longer stroke. Okay, so I'm feeling pressure. No, it's not anymore. Okay, I lost it. So I think it might have been on the power stroke, but we'll see. It actually might have been on the compression stroke, but I lost it. Keep going. I'll tell you when to stop. Oh, okay, that was loud. Okay, go ahead, do it again. Okay, that's it right there. I felt the air shooting into my ear, so I know we're on the compression stroke. Stop, don't do it anymore, Ray. Now that we know we're on the compression stroke, I'm gonna put the 1/4 inch extension back in there, and Ray is gonna turn it over really slowly while I'm watching for that mark to get to the top of the spark plug tube. Go ahead, Ray. Okay, stop right there. Just go like a tiny bit. Stop. Okay, that's good. Now that we know we're at top dead center compression, I'm going to put the tester hose back in here. Now we got to get our gauge cluster over here and then connect up the air source. For the leak down tester, you're going to hook up the adapter to this side, and it's a quick coupling. So now that's connected. And then you hook up this side to your shop air. And I'll show you the piddly little Craftsman air compressor I have. It's not the ideal size, but it's going to be good enough. It's this tiny little sucker right here. It goes up to 135 PSI, which is enough for this job because I'm only going to pressurize the cylinders to 90 PSI. But the downside to a small air compressor like this, it has a very low air capacity. So as soon as I pressurize the cylinder and we know we're losing a lot of pressure somewhere, this air compressor is going to start kicking on because it's going to hit the magic level where it's going to kick back on again. So that's the unfortunate thing about a size like this. With any air compressor, you're going to have a regulator, and I'm setting the discharge pressure to 100 PSI. I'm going to be supplying the leak down tester with 100 PSI, but then I'm going to adjust the regulator on the tester to 90 PSI. You want the level 10 PSI less than your supply pressure. That's what the instructions say on the tester kit. Now this has a regulator. I want to back it off all the way, but once I get the air source connected, I'm going to turn this regulator and I'm going to get it up to 90 PSI, and then watching over here. And the comparison of this gauge to this gauge is going to show us how much pressure we're losing in that cylinder. So now I'm going to connect up the air. One thing I just learned the hard way, which was kind of a stupid mistake, is don't have your regulator on your air compressor turned up yet. Have it all the way down to 0. You'll make the connection here to the tool much easier. Okay, so now that's connected. I'm going to go back to my regulator. I'm going to turn it up to 100 PSI. Okay, that's at 100. And then I'm going to start turning this regulator to the right and increase the pressure to 90 while looking at this. And again, the comparison between this one and this one is going to tell me the amount of percentage loss. Can't even get it up. Air compressor is going to have to kick in for me to get it up to 90. don't think it's ever going to get there with this air compressor. With this air compressor, it doesn't have the capacity. It's losing air too quickly. You can see the disparity. I'm at 80 and this is at 16. That's a huge loss. We'll still be able to figure out the percentage by using 80 psi as our intake and then 16 as our residual.
16 divided by 80.
16 divided by 80. So that's 20%. So it's lost, no, but it's lost 80%.
Yeah, 80%.
Yeah, that's an 80% loss from 80 to 16. That's dramatic. So now the next step is we have to figure out where that compression is leaving the cylinder. There's 5 areas you can lose the compression. Number 1, it could be getting past worn piston rings. The piston rings aren't getting a very good seal with the cylinder wall, and the air pressure is getting past those rings. Another way, it's getting past a bad intake valve or intake valve seat. So you either have a hole in the valve or the seat is damaged and the air is escaping past that intake valve. A third way, it's getting past the exhaust valve or exhaust valve seat. A fourth way, it's getting past a bad head gasket. A fifth way is the head is cracked and it's getting past there. And then the crack could actually be in between the cylinders, so it's actually not leaving via the crack like into the water jacket area and getting into the coolant, but it's actually escaping to a neighboring cylinder. So that's another option. Now we got to figure out where the compression's going, and hopefully we'll figure it out. So an easy one to test is to see if it's getting past a bad head gasket. And when I pressurize the cylinder, if I see bubbles coming up into the top of the radiator, that's a dead giveaway that the head gasket has failed and the compression is leaving into the cooling jacket. So I'm going to turn up this regulator. Now I'm going to be looking to see if there's any bubbles coming up. I don't see any bubbles coming up into the radiator, which lets me know probably the head gasket is fine, but I do hear air escaping. Now we're going to check the next area. The next area I'm going to check is I'm going to be listening to see if it's getting past the piston rings. So I'm going to take the oil cap off and I'm going to get my ear down here and I'm going to pressurize the cylinder and then see if I hear air coming out from the top of the valve train. And I could hear it. I could definitely hear it. Yep, I could hear it. I think it's bad piston rings. The other area, say if it was a bad intake valve, you would listen right here at the throttle body or maybe a hose that attaches to the throttle body. And if the compression was sneaking past a bad intake valve or intake valve seat, you would hear it in this area of the intake. But I didn't hear it there. I heard it at the top of the valve train, but I'm going to go ahead and pressurize it and just listen over here to see if I hear anything. So I'm on top of this engine here. I'm going to pressurize it again, and I'm going to put my ear right over here and see if I hear any air escaping. And I'm going to open up the throttle plate baffle so I can listen easier. Okay, I'm going to open it up. Nope, I hear nothing at the intake. The last check I'm going to do is I'm going to get at the back of the vehicle and I'm going to put my ear up to the exhaust pipe. And if the compression was able to get past a bad exhaust valve or bad exhaust valve seat, then I would be hearing it at the tailpipe. So I'm going to let Ray turn up this valve to put pressure into the cylinder, and I'll be back there listening at the tailpipe. Okay, Ray, go ahead.
I'll just turn it clockwise?
Yeah, turn it clockwise and get it up to about 80 psi.
80 psi, copy that.
Okay, go ahead. Where is it at, Ray?
I am now at 80.
I don't hear anything from the exhaust. Nothing.
I hear from the cylinder.
Okay. So now for the benefit of you, the audience, I'm going to pressurize the cylinder again, and we have the mic right up against the oil filler cap, and you're going to hear the air that we were hearing when doing the test. And what you're hearing is air escaping by the piston rings. Myself, Ton, and Ray are pretty convinced that we're losing compression out of that number 1 cylinder past the piston rings. It's pretty much a dead giveaway. All right, we are all done with this compression check and leak down test of my buddy Ray's FZJ80 Land Cruiser. And the result is making Ray very sad because now he knows he needs major engine work. And what we're probably going to do is we're going to talk to my buddy Nick and his wife Rebecca at Yoda One Performance in Riverbank, California. And we're going to start talking about getting an engine for Ray. And lucky for you, you're going to get to see another engine swap on our channel. So stay tuned. We decided to not show you getting all the spark plugs back in and the spark plug wires reconnected because we know that if you took the spark plugs out and the spark plug wires out of the way, you know how to get them back connected. The other reason why we didn't show you putting all that stuff back together is because we are going to go eat some Thai food at a restaurant we really like called Krung Thai in San Jose. And we just don't have enough time to film all that little intricate stuff. So, sorry. We usually do it, but we didn't do it this time. When we're eating that spicy Thai food and tears are coming out of Ray's eyes, we're not going to know if he's crying because he's going to have to dump a bunch of money into his FZJ80 Land Cruiser, or the chilies are just too hot for him to handle. We were successfully able to figure out where the problem was with Ray's engine, but it's a sad day because he needs another engine. And we're going to get him one, hopefully, for a good price from Yoda One Performance. With all that said, we thank you for watching Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman and Sean and special guest Ray and my new favorite cameraman Tom. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you have any questions or comments, do that below. Take care. Bye-bye. Sick mods and sick FZJ80 Land Cruisers. Peace out. Happy wrenching and bye-bye.